manner, we are entrenching the alternative dispute resolution mechanism as an essential component of the management of state litigation. I know the President is very interested on this one. Hope he will speak more on it. The legal sector code, which is currently being duly processed by the Department of Trade and Industry and Competition towards the cabinet processes aimed to transform the legal profession. Armed with the legal sector code, we will be able to drive substantive reforms in the transformation of the legal profession. We are also building a new cadre of state attorneys. To do so effectively, Mr. President, we are resolute that we need to incorporate the youth into our organization. To this end, we are proud that our candidate attorneys program has begun again. We are growing our timber. Who knows, one day our next Solicitor General could emerge from the ranks of our candidate attorneys programs. Without any further ado, ladies and gentlemen, allow me to invite His Excellency, the President of the Republic, to address us. Mr. President.
Thank you. Let's be seated, please. Limachero. Ow, ow, ow. You know, I go around the country teaching our people all languages. Now it's quite clear to me that you don't know Venda. When I say Limachero, you say Abu. And then I go on to teach them Shitsonga. When I say Abshen, you say Ahe. Then I go on, I teach them Isindebele and all that. Now it's quite clear to me that you don't know our languages. Limachero, Abshen, Sanbonan. Oh, you don't even know. Thank you very much, Minister and DG, for giving me this opportunity. I extend my greetings to you, Minister, and want to applaud you for finally getting this forum underway. You said all of you would get 0. There is a minus zero as well. I extend my greetings to the other ministers who are here and thank them also for being here to support you, but also to engage in what we are going to discuss here. And I also extend my greetings to the DG and the Solicitor General and Directors General as a whole, and the heads of state attorney offices, and ladies and gentlemen. I'm told that many of you, maybe apart from Directors General, except one who's here, are lawyers. So it's wonderful to have an opportunity to talk to lawyers. I'm a failed lawyer myself, so you can dismiss me. This is an important moment in the development of our democracy. This is a moment I have yearned and looked forward to having with all of you in one setting to discuss what I regard as the most important matter, which is litigation processes that happen in our country. The structure that we are inaugurating today, the first Intergovernmental National Litigation Forum, is a crucial step towards what I see as an efficient and coordinated state legal services system. A state legal services system that promotes the values and the obligations that arise or that are embedded in our Constitution. in many ways, it also forms part of a broader transformation agenda or process of our society, and it is also aimed at strengthening governance in our country. It is one of those structures or forums that we are hoping will increase the capability of the state. We've been complaining that the capability of the state has weakened over time. And it does not necessarily mean that the people who are working in the state have become weak. It's just that our capability as a collective and as a structure has weakened. Now, what we are doing today is to increase the capability of this state that the people of South Africa hold so much in high regard. So this forum has the potential to enhance government's ability to fulfill its policy goals. The reform of legal services, both in private and public, is part of the broader transformation agenda that we want to see happening in our country. It is meant, firstly, to enhance access to justice for our people and to deepen constitutional democracy. The establishment of this forum is a signal of our collective determination to implement intergovernmental coordination and to drive efficiencies that reduce the considerable financial burden of lawsuits against government. And I want to stress the intergovernmental coordination, because we found that in dealing with legal cases in the state, there is no full coordination. The one hand does not often know what the other hand is doing. And I give you a good example. Sometimes a massive legal case or suit will be launched against government. It arrives at the Director General's office. The minister does not know about it, and the DG then proceeds to engage in the matter, engage lawyers, counsel, and all that. And yet, if the minister had known in time, another process could have been embarked upon, which I'll want to talk about in a little while. And you find that the one hand in the end does not know what the other hand is doing. And it then leads to huge legal costs. And through this type of forum, we will enhance coordination. We will get to know about legal suits that are launched against government at an early stage. During the whole process of COVID, we had, I don't remember, even up to 60, 80, even more legal suits. Citizens, entities, and all that trying to sue government. What helped us was that because the state of disaster management process was coordinated, and we were able to know that a case had been launched in Cape Town, in Durban, and so on, and we were then able to work together. And that is why we were able, in the main, to succeed in many of those cases. And yet, if it was disaggregated and uncoordinated, it could have led to many, many millions of rands being lost. So this forum has its roots in the recognition that a fragmented approach to litigation, a disaggregated approach, has huge costs for our fiscus and for our ability to implement our electoral mandate. It was to correct this problem that the presidency, and I actually raised it right at the beginning, and said, I'm not happy with the way legal suits left, right, and center are taking place right across at national government level, at provincial level, and indeed even at local government level. So it was to correct this problem that the presidency and the Department of Justice first began working on this in 2018, trying to put together the terms of reference for this type of forum, which I'm sure you will deal with as the day ensues. Among other things, this was to ensure that Cabinet has a line of sight, and I would even say that even the provincial executives need to have a line of sight of what legal suits are being thrown at government, so that we are able to contribute on government's overall litigation strategy through this type of forum. This development has been long overdue and has become much more urgent in my view. The legal fees for national and provincial spheres of government have risen exponentially. And over the past 5 financial years, they have amounted to something approximating 7 billion rand, which is a lot of money. The contingent liability resulting from claims against the state prior to the proclamation of the State Attorney Amendment Act of 2014 still needs to be fully interrogated. But the Auditor General has reported that the contingent liability was sitting at approximately 147 billion rand for 2020-21 financial year. Now, our Bill of Rights holds that every person has the right to administrative action that is lawful, reasonable, and procedurally fair. And they have a right to seek the review of administrative action by any court of law. This is a right that we must value and uphold, and we cannot in any shape or form reduce this type of right. The fact that some South Africans resort to the courts to uphold their rights points in part to the fact that there is widespread and systemic shortcomings in service delivery. People don't just wake up one morning and say, we are taking the government to court. There has to be something that they are concerned about. Yes, even those who sought to take the government to court during the height of COVID-19 were concerned about a number of things, and they have every right to want to take government to court. Our first responsibility as government is to ensure that we address all the shortcomings that may be embedded in the government system, and that we ensure that all persons in our country are able to fully exercise and enjoy their rights. That first and foremost is how we reduce legal action that is taken against the state. That should be our first approach. How do we reduce the incidence of legal actions that are taken against the state? Now, as I was sitting there, I asked the minister, we have mooted the idea of mediation, and the process and the policy is being worked on. Because one of the ways of avoiding legal action and all these litigation costs and the claims burden is to avoid legal action being taken. The first thing we have to do is we have to provide and give proper service delivery to our people. That avoids people rushing to courts. It could be in a hospital, it could be in a police station, it could be anywhere. That should be the first response that we should put in place. The second one I would like to suggest is mediation. When people are concerned about anything that affects their lives, there needs to be engagement, there needs to be discussions, and there needs to be negotiation even, to see the extent to which matters can be resolved. And matters are often resolved. Now, we seem to have lost this engagement, mediation, discussion DNA that has always been embedded in our identity as a nation. We were able to resolve a horrible system of apartheid through engagement, through discussion, through negotiation. And even during the height of apartheid, for instance, when we had incidents of violence throughout the country, we were able, through various structures, be it in the township, in the rural areas, even in business, we were able to find time to sit and set up structures that were aimed at bringing violence to an end. Now we seem to have lost that. And I'd like to suggest that mediation, even in legal suits, should be a way of avoiding the government finally being responsible for a huge burden of legal damages that government has to pay. And it is also, maybe even, I'd like to suggest that even at an international level, this mediation approach seems to be losing its effectiveness. I mean, we can see now the war that is going on in the Ukraine, and I would say that that conflict is a conflict that should be subjected to mediation, to negotiation, to engagement. Because it is not necessary for people to go to war and have people getting killed, infrastructure being damaged as it is now. And it behoves on the countries of the world, particularly the United Nations, Security Council. They are the ones who should be getting more and more engaged in a mediation process. And one does not see that happening. One does not see that full engagement. And it is this that I believe should happen to bring the hostilities to an end. That is precisely what needs to be done in that type of situation. Because it is not necessary for people to die and to be killed when the option of mediation, when the option of negotiation and engagement is available. I would say, coming to what we are all about today here, I've said to the minister we must move on with developing that mediation approach so that before cases even get to court, there should be engagement. And sometimes litigants are opposed on a number of issues, but it is when you talk to your opponents that you could be able to find solutions. And in the end, negotiations are held between people who hold opposing views. We were even able to talk to our enemies to bring the horror of apartheid to an end. So I want to suggest that first we have to do things right, deliver proper services to our people so that they do not need to embark on litigation. Secondly, a mediation route. And many of you are lawyers here, and I'm sure in some of the courses that you did, there must have been a mediation module that you did. I remember when I did law, there was some module like that. So if you haven't, if you didn't get that, maybe it's time to go back to school to go and learn about mediation. And I'm quite happy to be a lecturer there. Even as we work to reduce the potential for litigation against the state, we need to have mechanisms such as this forum that we are putting in place today to more effectively safeguard the interests and the resources of the people of our country. The ballooning costs of state litigation have become untenable and unsustainable. Now you just look at what the Auditor General says, that the contingent liability is 147 billion. Now just with that amount of money, imagine the number of things that we would be able to. We would be able to pump money into public employment. We would be able to pump money into education, into health, into a whole range of things. Instead, money is going towards paying legal suits. This forum has been established, therefore, to drive a coordinated approach to the management of state litigation. Now, this coordinated approach is necessary to ensure that government puts forward the best legal case possible. Now, before we even get to the best legal case, we do our service delivery, we do mediation, and the legal case should really, in the end, be the last resort. The state is the largest consumer of legal services in our country. And this is where I have another bugbear, a big problem. Because I have found that the state is often made to pay much more than what it needs to. We always overpay, be it legal services, be it products and services, or goods and services, we always pay much more than we should. And yet we are the largest entity that consumes either products or goods and services, and in this case also legal services. And I always argue that government, by sheer scale, should always get a discount, and a deep discount for that matter, because we are the government, we are the state. Now, quite often people see us coming. They see us coming and they overcharge. And quite often, some of us who work in the government system, we allow this to happen, like, you know, you know, anything goes. We can pay whatever amount. And I'm saying that in government service, we should be stingy because we are dealing with public money. We are not dealing with our uncle's money or our own money. And in fact, usually we are very stingy when it comes to our own money. So I want to underpin what we do with paying much less than what we are currently charged. And we obviously want to get value for the money that we pay. And we're not saying that we should shortchange the people who provide legal services to us or whatever, but we are saying we should never really be paying much more than what we need to pay. We employ hundreds of professionals through the offices of the state attorney, countrywide, to provide litigation and legal advisory services. Yet, despite these considerable human resources, we face significant challenges, many of them of our own making, where we either make mistakes and where we just do things that will increase the cost. We have come in for scathing criticism in a number of court judgments for poor quality of legal representation, poor compliance with instruction, unnecessary expenditure of state funds, and even dereliction of duty. When you read some of the judgments, you find that this is what we are criticized for. Inefficiencies from our own side are resulting in cases dragging for years and years in our courts. In one particular case I'm aware of, the initial claim against the department was 100 million. But owing to our own mishandling of the case, we eventually had to pay, or were eventually liable for an amount of 1 billion. Now you can already see, with our ineptitude, our carelessness in handling a matter, it finally gets to a point where we now have to pay almost R1 billion. Now this has to stop. Government departments need to be much more alert when handling legal matters. And when you handle a legal matter, it must be like you've received a notice from SARS. You know, when you get a letter or a notice from SARS, it makes you jump because you don't want to be in trouble with SARS. That's what happens to me. When I get a letter from SARS, I stop everything. Now, that is the approach that we should have, that when there is a legal case, we must immediately pay attention and pay due diligence and make sure that we will handle everything as well as it should be. And the ineptitude, the carelessness must come to an end. As people in the legal service in the state, we therefore must ensure that even those colleagues who work with us who are not here should from now on pay close attention. Now, another problem we've found is that government departments quite often do not support each other in litigation. When a department is not cited in a matter, I'm told that it does not always assist the department that is cited, notwithstanding that the subject matter of the litigation would benefit the other department from its input. And this too must come to an end. We must stop having this silo mentality. Now, this forum and a coordinated way of handling legal matters will assist us in doing so. Quite often, government departments do not coordinate and align their legal positions on matters. The high volume of work coupled with capacity constraint is a very real problem. As it currently stands, the service delivery environment of the state attorney has not kept up with the demand and perhaps did not even anticipate it. And I can imagine that there's a deluge. There are many cases that are launched against the state. And so we need to pay due attention to all these things as they happen. Internal legal departments have limited capacity and struggle to obtain instructions from fellow officials. And this is where other problems come in. And this is the point I was making, that when a legal suit is launched, we must pay attention and make sure that it is attended to with urgency and even with greater attention. Quite often you find that there is no cooperation. People do not come forward to give the information. Affidavits are not drafted and filed on time. So this forum is also expected to drive efficiencies and in the end contain costs that the state has to pay. We know that delays and failures by government departments to address service delivery issues timeously or to settle matters at early stages increases costs. And in order to reduce these costs, it is for this reason that I say we need to be serious when we handle these matters, opt for good service delivery, mediation, and a legal suit must be the last resort. Another serious challenge is non-delivery of legal costs. The non-payment or the delay in the payment of invoices by departments and the delays of payment of judgment costs. Now, I'm told that sometimes we hire lawyers, external lawyers and advocates, and at times we don't pay them on time. I've had a case where an advocate handled a matter, kept on handling a matter for up to 8 months and was never paid. And this obviously goes against the values that we've been espousing as government, that we need to be paying due diligence to these matters, and we must pay on time. It is also a reality that inefficiencies in many of our courts result in delayed legal suits and prosecutions, costing more time and more money. Now, there are all these problems in the system. They need to be addressed. And to address these and other shortcomings, the Office of the Solicitor General is tasked with developing monitoring systems over the work of the offices of the state attorney. We must urgently, therefore, formulate processes to achieve consistency in litigation procedures in different state attorneys' offices, and also implement, as I said, the state mediation policy to resolve disputes speedily. This will require the development of directives and standards to ensure streamlined oversight of the offices of the state attorney, not only by the office of the Solicitor General, but also by the presidency. So at the presidency level, we want, as I said, to have line of sight of legal cases that are being handled. And cabinet also does need to have line of sight, because in the end we are responsible for the expenditure that government incurs. This must be accompanied by a concerted effort to address shortcomings within the legal units in departments as well as other public entities, especially when dealing with the shortage of skilled and experienced personnel. We should plan our litigation strategies with a clear appreciation of how they affect the policy positions as well as the plans of our government. Now, in the end, we have a collective responsibility to ensure that the electoral mandate of this administration is implemented, and we need to respond effectively to any legal action that is intended to undermine that democratic mandate. So, colleagues, in the end, we cannot permit a situation where the policy agenda of government is impeded by our own ineptitude, but also impeded because the courts find that we are not doing what we need to do, and in the end, they get involved in directing government what it should do. And quite often, that's what happens. This means that we must work as one to ensure that judgments with far-reaching policy and other implications are properly argued, and if there are reasonable prospects of success, that they are appealed. Sometimes we just appeal for the sake of appealing, and I see this becoming the usual game in our country now. Even when there are no reasonable prospects for success, people just appeal, and therefore thereby increasing the costs. And in the end, where government is involved, we incur lots of costs. There is much that we can do to strengthen this area of work, and we need to work together to strengthen it. We need to move with speed to implement a policy on briefing and outsourcing legal work. This must also lead to developing a clear approach to a tariff policy. And this obviously we have to do in collaboration with the law bodies that we have, because we cannot do it alone. There must be regular engagements with departments to identify litigation trends, the root causes of litigation, and measures to address them. So if we are able to get together, and this forum is going to give us this possibility, we should then be able to look at the trends. What are the trends? And once we are able to decipher what the trends are, we will then be able to give advice to policymakers on how we should approach certain matters. We'll also be able to give advice to those who implement government policy. So in the end, as the legal fraternity sitting here, we play an important role, just as important as what the Minister of Justice does. Each time there's a permanent item on the cabinet agenda, which is legal matters. And he comes to cabinet to tell us about important legal cases that are showing a particular trend, or legal cases that are precedent-making that could impact on policy. So even at your level, you need to be sharper and be more alive to the trends that are unfolding so that you are then able to give advice to policymakers. We welcome that the Office of the Solicitor General has developed a 5-year litigation strategy, as well as policies to implement the State Attorney Amendment Act. The Department of Justice and Constitutional Development, as the nerve center of government litigation, along with the Presidency, will play a prominent role in this regard. The primary objective of the strategy is to develop and implement a holistic and coordinated approach to state litigation. We need to have a clear approach and a clear strategy. And the strategy must reflect the values of our government. They must reflect its policies, its decisions, and also its priorities. What is needed is that state litigation should be managed in a manner that is integrated, professional, and I want to spend a minute on professional as well as empowering. This is where we should be able to say, as the legal fraternity in government, you are the brains trust, the real brains trust of high-end capability and professionalism, because you are the ones who will be dealing with legal matters, and legal matters often have a constitutional bearing and legislation bearing. And if there are a group of people in government who should really be at the top of their game, it is all of you who are sitting here, where we need to see real great professionalism in the manner that you handle matters, in the manner in which you give advice, and sometimes, and quite often, you are even asked to write opinions before we even rush to your senior counsel. And it would be wonderful if, as legal people, we're even able to develop legal opinions here without even showering praise on a legal advisor that I have. I often find that the legal advice that she gives is the type that I would still get from a senior counsel. And that she has developed over time, obviously being an advocate herself, but it infuses a lot of confidence and trust in knowing that we are getting real great legal advice. So I put that across to you, that let us up our professional game. Let us, as legal people, be operating at the top of our game and demonstrate that we know the law deeply, that we are people in the legal profession who know the law. Lawyers have often been thought as being, the cleverer people. I'm not a lawyer myself, so many of you are clever people. So this is what we would like to see, that when we do get legal advice, we get real top-class legal advice. The implementation of the State Attorney Amendment Act represents a phased approach to transforming the state legal services. It recognizes that immediate solutions are required to the current challenges that we are facing. Our focus must be on redesigning and re-engineering the measures that are aimed at improving state litigation, with a particular emphasis on reducing liability and litigation. But I'd like to add that just the measures that we should take should make us to be much more efficient, much more professional, much more well-attuned with the law. So that is what one would expect that people of your ilk sitting here would have. And I'd like to say that this forum is so important. In my view, it's a game changer. From now, our approach to litigation in government should change. One of the most direct measures of the success of this forum must be the reduction of the state's contingent liability. As Cabinet, we will be expecting a regular litigation management report, which no doubt will be presented by the Minister of Justice, who always, as he presents all these legal matters, just regales Cabinet with his deep knowledge of the law, and I'm really always delighted, and sometimes I hang on every legal term that he pronounces. He doesn't turn into a lot of Latin. I should remind him that, he should always add a little bit of Latin so that we can see that, he's at the real top of the game. Things like ex abundanti cautela, things like that. I learned that at university. So we will be expecting this regular litigation management report, at least biannually, Minister, which provides a very clear and comprehensive view of progress in improving the management of litigation and reducing litigation liabilities. I have no doubt that the opening of this forum, the inauguration of this forum, heralds a new era in the management of state litigation, in the way we will manage cases, but also in the way we will showcase, as legal people in the state structure, our keen knowledge of the law. In the South Africa that we are working to build, state litigation liability would be negligible if we do all these things I'm saying, because we would be doing things properly from the onset, providing service delivery to our people, where our police stations and hospitals and the personnel that work in those places are found wanting, we would correct them immediately and resolve disputes through mediation rather than litigation. In the South Africa we are working to build, we would resolve problems through engagement with stakeholders and more effective consultation, leaving little need for interest groups to challenge government's actions in court. But as we build this South Africa, we will need to confront the realities of the present. In this time of great scarcity, let us do everything that we can within our means through effective coordination of litigation to free up the financial resources of the state to pursue our developmental agenda and improve people's lives. And I think beyond this forum, we should all be infused with the ambition to be the great lawyers of the government, to be the highly professional lawyers of the government. We should know that our people expect a lot from us. And this is what we need to move towards, to be the very best in delivering our legal services to government, and in the end, by so doing, we will be saving lots of costs for government. Thank you very much.